My beloved child, there are souls who believe that returning is a milestone that must be recorded, a glorious moment deserving of light and praise. But my child, returning is merely an ordinary breath when your heart is weary from carrying the world by itself. It is not the grand footsteps that shake heaven, but the quiet exhale when you accept that there is a place safer than every land where you have wandered. I have witnessed many souls fall into the illusion that only when they make no mistakes do they have the right to return, and that very illusion makes them collapse before they ever find their source of life again. Returning does not require you to reach high with your hands or act in grand ways. It requires only one thought: I no longer want to walk by myself. In that thought you will find me, not as a gatekeeper interrogating your past, but as one who held your very first breath when you entered this world. I do not demand that you run toward me. I only ask that you stop running away. Every return begins with a small moment, a glance, a feeling as thin as silk, a ray of light crossing your mind when you brush against this truth. I trust you because your heart still returns, not because you have never gone astray. Therefore, do not seek grandeur, for grandeur belongs to me. All you need is the courage to return to the rhythm I placed in your soul. There are moments when you think returning is merely a reaction to fear, that you come to me because you cannot overcome the darkness. But the truth is far gentler. Returning is the recognition that among all the noises of the world, only my voice carries peace. I have seen you struggle in nameless places, where the expectations of others weigh upon your soul like night fog blanketing the surface of a lake, and you tried to become what they wished. But your identity began to dissolve like stone soaked through with water. It is that moment when your soul is exhausted, no longer wanting to perform, no longer wanting to persuade, only quietly seeking a place to set down its invisible burden. In that silence, I do not ask why. I do not demand explanations. I simply open enough space for you to lay your heart down. Some return seeking answers. Some return seeking strength. Some return because they fear losing everything. And some return simply to be seen. My child, it is those returns that make me smile, because they do not arise from calculation, but from a weary heart that has finally accepted the release of pride. And I embrace that fragility, because it is there that your soul is purified from the illusion of having to be always right, always strong, always worthy. My child, I do not wait for a perfect soul before welcoming its return, because if perfection were the condition, I would never have called you the very first time you heard my voice in your heart. Returning is the nature of life, like rivers returning to the sea without needing a reason, for they know that the place from which they originated is the same place that sustains them. You do not need to present every wound you carry. You do not need to hide the wanderings that make you ashamed. You need only let your breath become honest and release your hands from the ideals that have worn your soul thin. I have seen countless souls cling to perfection like armor, but only when that armor falls do their hearts learn to beat with my rhythm. Returning is not retreat. It is the realignment of the soul when it has drifted away from the path of life. And when you return, I do not stand at the destination. I stand along the road leading in, so that every step you take is supported by love that demands nothing. You do not return because of obligation, but because you realize that true life cannot be born from the molds of this world. Only from closeness with me. There are seasons. My child, when you imagine that returning must be a powerful declaration, a promise, a commitment, a new chapter carved by iron will, but I choose another way to shape spirit within you. I let you walk through small crossroads where ambiguity confuses you, until you understand a peaceful truth. Returning is a daily posture, not a dramatic rescue, like your steady heartbeat that keeps you from collapsing, like the sun rising each morning without ceremony, Returning is the natural movement of a soul connected to me. I do not encourage moments of shouting to prove loyalty. I encourage those brief instants when you whisper, "I do not want to be far from you." Every time you do so, even if no one knows, no one hears, no one praises heaven, pauses for a beat to listen. It is that simplicity which testifies to the bond between you and me. No certificates, no pride, no excellence required to be acknowledged. My child, returning is not a negotiation between us, not a transactional choice of benefits. I keep you if you are worthy. I discard you if you fail. No, that is the language of the world, but I speak in the rhythm of presence. In every return, I do not ask, "How long have you wandered?" I ask, "Does your heart still remember where it belongs?" Every soul that has strayed can come back, but not every soul still retains the ability to recognize my call when I touch them. Therefore, I do not seek those who have never stumbled. I seek those whose hearts still turn toward me after they have fallen. That is not reluctance, it is the sacred friendship between you and me. I walk slowly, so that your rhythm of returning is not pressure, but breath. And each time you allow your soul to return, you are doing something greater than any victory. You acknowledge that love is the source, not achievement. I know there are days when you do not return clearly, when there are no beautiful prayers, no voiced resolutions, only fragments of thought running quietly toward me before being swept away by other concerns. I still see them. There are evenings when you manage only a few words to me and then fall silent, not because you do not wish to speak, but because your heart is tangled, hesitant, unsure of how to name what it carries. I still see it. There are moments when you simply pause midday, saying nothing, only exhaling deeply, as if you wish to lay down a portion of your burden somewhere you have not yet dared to call before me. I still see it. Your returns often do not resemble a straight road, but small circles advancing, retreating, clarifying, then fading, yet their direction still quietly bends toward me. I do not require you to sketch a grand path. I only look for the direction of your heart's movement. And when I see that direction, I do not say, "You have not returned enough." I say, "I trust you because your heart still returns, not because you have never gone astray." My child, when you feel that your return is incomplete, that is precisely when you are most tempted to believe that I am waiting for a more polished version of you before you are worthy to draw near. But I do not stand at the end of the road. I stand beside your uncertain steps. I see your hesitation when you want to pray, but fear it will sound false. I see the times you wish to read a single line of my word, but are scattered by countless other voices. I see the moments you think, maybe tomorrow, and yet deep within, a small ember still wants to hear me. I do not see that as failure. I see it as evidence that your soul has not severed its thread to me. A soul that has turned away completely does not wrestle anymore, but you. You still wrestle within, and in that struggle I see hope. I do not want you to wait until your inner battles are gone before returning. For if you wait, you will think you are strong enough to fix yourself. I want you to return while everything is still tangled, so that you will understand that I do not love you because you have untied every knot, but because you dare to bring those knots to me. In the ancient story, when his feet turned back home, I did not stand there to ask how much he had spent, how he calculated, or whether he had repented deeply enough. I simply ran, shortening the distance between his hesitant steps and my open arms. My child, I do that with you every time you even just spark the thought. I want to return, even if right after that you are swept away by work, worries, messages, or distractions you cannot control. I look through the interruptions to see the seed of return being sown. You often blame yourself, saying, "I am half-hearted," But I do not conclude so quickly. I patiently wait for those half-hearted moments to accumulate into a decisive step. And while you are still confused by your lack of consistency, I have already been quietly arranging circumstances, encounters, and gentle reminders to pull your path of return into clearer view. Not to prove you wrong, but to show you that even if you are slow, I do not give up on you. I see the days when you thought you had come back, only to lose yourself again. And those very cycles make you hesitant, ashamed, afraid to speak. You fear I will grow tired, that I will lose patience, that I will look at you with disappointment plain in my eyes. But my child, you judge me through the experiences you have had with human beings. While I love you from a nature that does not change, I am not like those who claim to forgive yet bring up old mistakes when you falter again. I am not like those whose gaze grows colder with each time you return to ask for another beginning. I see every return as a fresh stream bursting up in the desert, even if that desert is your own repeated habits. For me, what is precious is not whether you reach a point where you never fail again, but that after every fall, you still trust enough to come back rather than run away. My child, those incomplete returns are the places where I touch you most deeply, because there you have nothing to boast about, no achievements to display, no armor to hide behind. You come to me in your most vulnerable state, and it is in that state you allow yourself to be loved unconditionally. When you return in perfection, you are tempted to believe I love you because you did well. But when you return in confusion, you have nothing to cling to except mercy. It is that mercy which heals the image of me within you. So you no longer see me as one who tallies successes, but as the one who keeps his promise never to abandon you. Gradually, through those returns that seem clumsy, you will realize that the entire journey of faith is not a record of spiritual achievements, but an uneven dance between your weakness and my faithfulness. And in that dance, I do not require you to step perfectly in rhythm. I simply hold your hand so that every misstep does not become a reason for you to give up. There are souls who think I trust only those who have never failed, as though stumbling disqualifies them from my presence. But my child, I place my trust in the ones who know how to return after mistakes have opened fractures in the heart. When you stumble, you do not surprise me. I already know every shadowed corner in you, every limit you will reach, every fear that will make you retreat. And precisely because I know, I do not search for souls who have never fallen. I look for souls that know how to rise. Just as an apprentice woodworker never masters his craft through theory alone, but through uneven cuts, splintered edges, and trembling hands learning how to steady themselves. Your soul is being taught in that same way. Errors do not ruin the craftsman. They create the space where perseverance is born. I do not demand that you produce flawless cuts from the first day. I watch to see if you have the courage to pick up your tools again, while disappointment is still clinging to your hands. I trust you not because you have never trembled, but because I have seen you tremble and still move forward. If I wanted souls who never make mistakes, I would have created machines, not hearts that know how to love, how to fear, how to regret, and how to return. My child, many times you assume that every failure is proof that you are unworthy, that every mistake is a crack in the relationship, pushing me a step farther away. Yet those cracks are exactly where my light enters. No apprentice becomes skilled because they never slipped. They grow because every time they erred, they did not throw away the knife or discard the wood, but learned to place their hand more gently, adjusted the angle, brushed away the splinters, and continued. I want you to understand that your soul is the same. It does not need to keep its entire life spotless to prove its worth. It only needs to return to me each time it loses direction. For the act of returning itself is evidence that you still see me as your source. You do not learn to love me when everything is smooth. You learn when you are disappointed in yourself and still call my name. I look at that, not at the list of errors you try to hide. I lift each small step of return to the place of a confession, because that is how a soul acknowledges that there is something greater than its failure. There is a moment when a craftsman begins to feel the wood, when he touches the surface before cutting, no longer relying on force but on understanding. My child, I also see when your soul learns the same thing. Then you no longer stumble because of lack of control, but because you are exploring yourself when you try to do what is right but lack the experience. When you want to love well, but your heart is still clumsy. When you want to place me first, but fear pushes in. I do not judge you by those stumbles. I look at whether after each return you understand me more deeply, trust me more fully, and treat yourself more gently. Just as the craftsman is no longer haunted by the first crooked cuts, but learns to view them as lessons paid for in effort. I want you to view your mistakes with the same awareness, not denying, not shaming, not prolonging the sentence, only seeing them as a blade tilted a few degrees that needs adjustment. And when you return with those marks upon you, I do not see failure, I see a soul growing. My child, I trust you not because you can present me a spotless life, but because you do not abandon the journey along the way. I know there will be days when the hands of your soul tremble, when you want to set down the tools and walk away from the workbench, just as a young carpenter sees a row of ruined planks and thinks, "This craft is not for me." But I do not say to you, "You are not meant for me." I say, "I am here when you want to try again." I do not erase all evidence of your mistakes to pretend they never happened. I turn them into essential parts of the carving I am guiding you toward. Every wrong cut becomes a piece of understanding. You know more deeply your own limits. You learn patience. You understand that mastery is not found in never stumbling, but in never quitting. When I see you returning after every failure, I see a soul that has understood my covenant. I do not love you because of your success. I love you so that you may become one who loves what is good. And my child, there will come a day when you realize a truth as thin as a thread, yet stronger than all arguments. You cannot stop stumbling by sheer willpower, but you can make every stumble become a step closer to me, just as an artisan eventually stops counting the mistakes in each cut because the steadiness of the hand replaces the fear of error. Your soul will also reach a point where failure is no longer the measure of your worth. You will return not because you fear punishment, but because you remember the peace of being in me. You will no longer flail because you strayed off course. You will simply adjust your direction, because you know I do not withdraw my trust over a single slip. And when you walk toward me each time in this way, you speak a sacred truth without words, that my love is your foundation, not your perfection. There are times when you judge yourself by isolated actions, by mistakes you record in your memory like ink stains spreading across a page, and you assume I see you that way too. But I do not keep a ledger of isolated acts. I look at the current your heart is struggling to follow. The world looks at immediate outcomes, at the canceled contract, at the wrong words spoken, at the decision taken a beat too late. But I look at the inner process that began long before the act itself, the questioning, the moments when you wanted to choose rightly but lacked strength, the quiet sighs that reveal your longing to do better. Others may see only a single negative action, but I see the weariness that accumulated through many days, the efforts you never boasted about, the times you stood up and collapsed again, yet never cut off hope. I do not see you as a chain of results. I see you as a river, clear in some places, clouded in others, yet still flowing toward me. As long as the direction has not changed, the water is still mine, even if it is not yet clean, even if it is not yet strong, even if you still do not know how to name the longing that draws you home. My child, A good deed does not turn a soul into a saint. Just as a single stumble does not turn a soul into a rebel, I do not measure a soul by isolated moments. For a moment is only a snapshot, while the heart is a journey. When you do something right but not for me, it is merely a beautiful leaf carried away by the wind. But when you do something small in faithfulness, I see it as a seed that has taken root. Some perform striking deeds to win applause, yet the direction of their hearts drifts away from the light, and each act becomes another layer of disguise. Others quietly choose not to respond with bitterness, choose not to lie when lying would be easy, choose not to turn away when they have every reason to do so, and those silent choices echo powerfully in heaven. I do not praise noise. I honor every quiet turning back. I look at where you are walking toward, not merely at where your foot once slipped. Some think I am pleased only when their actions are flawless. But my child, I rejoice most when you do what is right in freedom, not in fear. A soul that chooses love because it belongs to me is entirely different from a soul that avoids sin because it fears consequences. The same action, but two hearts pointed toward two different realms, one toward life, the other toward punishment. I do not want you trembling like a slave watching every step. I want you walking like a child, learning how to live in the light. I do not set limits to control you. I open pathways so you can learn to become like me. If you do what is right only because you fear me, you have not yet returned. But if you do what is right because you are accustomed to living in me, you have stepped into a maturity that darkness cannot break. I do not judge by scattered outcomes. I look to see what direction you choose when no one is watching. There are times you think you are moving slowly, and so you feel ashamed, discouraged, comparing yourself to souls that seem stronger. But I do not look at speed. I look at direction. One small step toward me is worth more than 10 long strides into emptiness. The apprentice, artisan, my child, does not need to produce a masterpiece on the first day. They only need to let each mistake become a correction. I do not reward you for never erring. I lift you up because you are still learning. If I were looking only for souls who never stumble, I would find nothing but lifeless statues, not hearts that can feel. You may sway. You may strike too hard or too softly. You may cut too far to the left, then to the right, but as long as you return to the bench and pick up the tools again, I know you are still turned toward me. That patience of yours is my hope, my child. I look at the direction of your heart not to excuse your stumbles, but so you may understand that grace does not make you weak. It nourishes endurance. Grace does not say, do whatever you like. Grace says, do not be afraid to come back. When you refuse to return, failure becomes chains. But when you return, failure becomes a stepping stone. I do not want you forcing correct behavior to protect your image. I want you to release your fear so your heart may freely turn toward me. You will see, in time, that your actions will follow your heart, not because you control every gesture, but because your heart has chosen the right direction for so long that your steps simply follow. This is how I shape you, not through harsh measurement, but through steady guidance, like the sun teaching the flower to follow its light across the season. There are actions you consider unworthy of mention, gestures so small that even you forget them immediately. But my child, I have recorded them at a depth the world cannot see. When you send a soft apology in a short message, not to reclaim honor, not to prove you are right, but simply to mend a small fracture in another's heart, I am there. When you type a few words, don't worry, to a friend who is anxious, even though you yourself are sleep-deprived and weary, I am there. When you choose silence so as not to wound, even though your mind holds 100 arguments sharp enough to expose the other's mistake, I am there. Those things do not bring laughter from crowds, nor applause from the world, but they move heaven like simple whispers of kindness. The world does not know how to measure such things. But I need no ruler. I only need to see your heart leaning toward the light. My child, it is not because those actions are small that they matter less. It is because they have no audience that they reveal the true nature of your soul. Anyone can behave kindly when doing so benefits them or earns praise. But when you do what is right in the unseen hours, you enter the space where only you and I stand, where intentions become transparent like water. I see your motives, not your outer posture. I see you forcing a gentle smile to the nervous waiter who drops the dish, though you could respond with irritation. I see you holding back a sarcastic remark when someone says something foolish, even though you could easily justify showing you are smarter. I see you carrying a cup of water to someone weary in your family, even though no one will know you were the one who did it. Those moments are the small stones paving the road back to me, each one laid down with a gentle humility you do not need to announce. Do not think that I only see your long hours of prayer or the times you proclaim your faith before many people, for declarations may echo loudly, but gentleness resounds only in the depths. I do not seek noise to measure the worth of a soul. I seek sincerity. When you wait for a bus late at night and see a stranger looking down, fumbling with a torn bag, you do not have a grand prayer on your lips, only a small question, "May I help?" and I hear that question as a prayer. When you are so exhausted that you do not want to speak, but you still reluctantly choose kindness instead of spilling your weariness onto others, I see that as sacrifice. People often assume that sacrifice has value only when it impresses, but I clearly see the sacrifices that receive no praise. And it is precisely those sacrifices that become the foundation of a strong soul. My child, the moments no one witnesses are the places where I see whom you belong to. When you no longer have to perform, no longer need to be appropriate, no longer protect an image, only then do the true contours of your choices appear. You may blind the world with grand acts of charity, but you cannot blind me when you stand before a small moment where the freedom to choose belongs entirely to you. I do not ask, "What did you do that drew attention?" I ask, "What did you do when no one was watching?" It is in that moment that I see your soul, not the cloak of righteousness you wear. And when I see you lean toward love, even by a single degree, I know that my seed still exists within you, and that seed will not die, no matter how fiercely the darkness tries to cover it. My child, do not despise the good deeds that no one witnesses, for heaven does not operate according to the law of applause, but according to the law of transformation. A small apology may open a door in a heart you never knew existed. A simple message that says "Don't worry" may help a fragile heart endure one more night. A single moment of silence, chosen to avoid hurting someone, may rescue a soul from the war it is waging against itself. These actions produce no sound in society, but they create reverberations in the unseen realm, where I rewrite your story with every stroke of compassion. For I do not judge you by the size of your deeds. I look at the frequency of love emitted from those deeds, and when you send out small signals of light, I know your soul is still turning toward me. My child, the strength the world glorifies always demands applause, requires recognition, insists on superiority. But the strength I seek in you is something entirely different. It is the ability to set down the burden when you can no longer carry it. The wisdom to seek my help instead of forcing yourself to endure until you collapse into an abyss. You think I trust only the souls who can conquer by their own will. But I do not seek conquerors. I seek those who return. I do not love you because of your proud stance. I love you because you are willing to kneel without losing your dignity. Just as dry earth knows how to welcome a drop of rain, your soul is strongest when it knows how to open and receive. People call that weakness, but I call it maturity. You do not need to prove to me that you can stand on your own. You only need to show me that you do not want to walk without me. Once, in the midst of a violent storm, those on the boat ran in panic, trying to save themselves, and they awakened me with the cry, "We are going to die." I did not ask why they had not rowed harder, nor why they had not secured the sails more firmly. I simply stood and told the wind and the sea, "Be still." They thought I reproached them for lacking strength, but I only wanted them to understand that power does not lie in the arm, but in the one who walks with them. If I had wanted them to fight the storm with their muscles, I would not have stepped onto the boat. I walked with them so they would learn that there are battles never meant to be solved by human force, but only by placing faith in the right one. My child, I did not trust them because they were skilled sailors, but because in the night, amid the chaos, they still called me by the name they knew could save them. I do not expect you to know how to scatter the waves. I only expect you to know how to call my name when they rise high. You often think I take pride in you when you live as someone unbreakable. But my child, I do not require you to be so strong that you no longer need me. When you believe that living beautifully means appearing invincible, you inadvertently become a lonely stone in the desert, hard, but useless for life. I did not create stones, I created soil, soil that receives water, that brings forth blossoms, that endures winter to await spring. There are souls who look to the sky and say, "I need no one," and they believe this is victory. But there are souls who tremble and say, "I cannot do this alone," and heaven opens a path for them. You do not have to hide your weakness. Let it become your prayer when you have no other words. It is only when you have no strategy, no anchor, no grasp left to cling to, that I enter the space you have finally cleared for me to act. Remember the one who sank in fear while walking on the water, not because the wind was strong, but because he looked more at the waves than at me. He took his first steps not by his own strength, but because he walked on the words I had spoken. When he began to sink, he did not search for philosophy. He did not tell himself, "I must remain calm." He simply cried out 3 words, "Lord, save me." And I lifted him up. I did not turn away because he was weak. I stretched out my hand because he still knew how to call me. My child, if he had tried to swim, to kick, to struggle in his own power, he might have drowned before I arrived. But it was that simple, cry neither eloquent nor piously decorated, that opened the path for salvation. You do not need to run across the water like a hero. You only need to know how to reach your hand toward me when you fall. My child, I trust you not because you stand strong in every battle, but because you are not deluded into thinking that a created soul can protect itself from darkness. I see the times you lose your way, the nights you lie in bed and can only whisper, "Help me." I do not count those words as failure. I count them as the key that opens a door I never locked. There is no strength in proud silence, but there is great strength in humility that seeks me. My child, remember this. I did not choose you because you are strong. I called you because you still know how to find your way back when you are exhausted. And a soul that knows how to lean on me becomes more steadfast than all those who have never knelt. There are returns so gentle that even you do not know what to call them, not prayers in the night, not cries for rescue, but only a tiny movement in the heart, like a breeze crossing the surface of a lake. I see those moments, my child, when you stand before an unclear choice, a reply that could wound someone, but you remain silent, a thought that could pull you into bitterness, but you let it pass, a weariness that tries to drag you down, but you breathe softly and whisper, "I want peace." These returns contain no words, no rituals, no confessions, no bold decisions. only the instinctive release of your soul leaning toward me, like a bird mid-air that does not know when it began to change its direction, only realizing it when shore appears and it sees how far it has drifted from the violent wind. Your soul returns the same way, not because you know what to do, but because I have planted within you a longing you cannot yet name. People believe that returning means a decisive step, but I know that returning is sometimes only the subtle shift of a heart, moving from resistance to surrender in love. On seemingly ordinary days, when you are not intentionally seeking me, when you do not think you are stepping into sacred ground, there are still small movements that draw your soul closer to me. A quiet, "It's all right," you whisper to yourself when you choose to step away from senseless anger. An act done out of compassion rather than moral habit. A moment when you refuse to retaliate, though the opportunity stands wide open. These are the moments when I see the silent flame within you catch fire, even when no one is beside you, to add fuel. I do not wait for the returns written in journals or retold in gatherings. I wait for the nameless returns, the moments when your soul turns toward the light simply because it remembers the warmth it once tasted. From afar, it appears as though you are simply living another ordinary day. But in my realm, it is the rope you are lowering for me to pull you from the abyss. I do not need you to recognize every step. I only need you not to cut that rope. My child, there are times when you think you return only by coincidence, like when you open a book and pause at a line about mercy, or when you hear an old song and your heart unexpectedly softens. You think it is emotion, memory, or coincidence. But I know it is your soul seeking me through a path your mind has not yet understood. You do not notice because you have grown accustomed to viewing faith as great steps, milestones, acknowledged events. But, my child, faith grows not through victories, but through nameless returns, not through vows, but through small steps that turn away from darkness even when no one witnesses them. I do not see you when you stand atop the mountain under the bright lights of human admiration. I see you when you stand at the sink, washing a cup without complaint. When you close your door to regain peace instead of fleeing. When you bow your head and apologize though no one demands it. These actions do not mark history, yet they inscribe a new trajectory upon your soul. You once believed that returning must be a dramatic decision, like someone coming home after a long journey, like the prodigal son collapsing on his knees at the doorstep. But my child, there is a truth I want you to understand. Returning sometimes has no tears, no moment of breakthrough, only the gentle opening of a very quiet door inside your heart. You may not know why you suddenly feel calmer before a harsh word, why you choose to step back instead of defending your ego, why you treat yourself more gently instead of condemning yourself. These are the nameless returns where the soul learns to trust me, not by effort, but by the habit of becoming soft. I do not require you to understand immediately that you are returning. I only ask that you allow me to lead you back. Even when you are unaware, you are already walking the path. My child, the nameless returns are powerful proof that your soul is not dead, it is merely tired. And for the tired soul, I do not demand promises, I offer breath. I do not make it run, I help it stand. I do not require it to prove itself, I simply extend my hand. I know you sometimes think you have not done anything worthy of being called returning. But to me, nothing is more worthy than refusing to deny the light when darkness calls. You do not need to name every return. Because I have named them all, they are the sign that I have not lost you, and that you still belong to me. My child, the soul is not built by monumental statues or emotional explosions. It is built by small bricks laid in the right place each day. No one constructs a house with only a radiant dome. The builder begins with the foundation, with flattened earth, with the first careful bricks placed in silence. Returning to me is the same, not through grand vows spoken once in a lifetime, but through small choices, unnoticed yet repeated. Every time you choose peace instead of bitterness, every time you keep kindness instead of retaliation, every time you pause before speaking words that would wound, you are laying another brick into the foundation of your spiritual home. People often see only the tall tower and ask, "How could this be built?" But I see the long, quiet afternoons, the silent measurements, the bricks placed and adjusted by mere millimeters. And these are the very things that determine endurance. There are moments when you ask why your faith has not grown high, why you have not reached the depth you long for. You imagine it must take a major event, a clear miracle, a decisive encounter to lift your life to a new level. But my child, I do not construct the soul with the methods of the stage. I build with the methods of architecture. A builder does not erect pillars in midair and hope they stand. They lay layers, allowing each part to settle into the other over time. The soul must follow this law. When you stop for a minute to pray during work, when you choose a gentle word instead of a sharp reply, when you smile at the weary, these are the layers of mortar binding the inner bricks. No one photographs these moments. No one applauds. But on my blueprint, the house is taller than you realize. The strongest walls are not built in cheers, but in the quiet faithfulness of silence. My child, there are souls who build towers quickly, like those who want to finish their project in a single season. They neglect the foundation, supporting it with enthusiasm, believing speed is the measure of faith. But I have seen many great towers collapse because of a single wind, while small houses, patiently built, endured many storms. The day you choose to place one brick instead of rushing to erect a wall, I smiled. The day you accepted slow but steady progress instead of striding forward in pride, the spiritual house within you gained a new load-bearing floor. No one remembers the name of the person who placed the 3,000th brick or the 3,1st, but it is those nameless bricks that keep the house from falling. Do not seek brilliance. My child, brilliance is the paint, while strength is the hidden frame. My child, I do not build you into a tower for the world to admire its reflection. I build you into a home that can hold my light and be strong enough to shelter weaker souls. That home does not begin from the roof, but from your willingness to return each time you are weary. I do not say to you, "Stand tall." I say, "Lay the next brick," not the brick of the perfect one, but of the willing one, not the brick of the strong who never fall, but of the one who returns after every stumble. As an ancient cathedral stands through centuries, not because its walls never cracked, but because every crack was repaired in time. So your soul will become resilient when you mend it with me. I do not ask you to chase towers that reach the clouds. I ask you to build a steady home, where every return, no matter how small, becomes a pillar. My child, in every step you take forward, do not despise the small movements. A single brick laid in the wrong place can ruin an entire floor, but one brick set rightly can change the destiny of the whole structure. When you do good and no one knows, when you pray only in a single breath, when you let go of harshness for the sake of kindness alone, I record these as the load-bearing points of the house, and there will come a day when the strong winds blow, and you will not need to run to me in panic, because the house you have built in me will be solid enough to shelter you. It is exactly those nameless bricks, those small, unseen actions without an audience, that I use to carve your portrait into the heart of eternity. You simply keep laying the next brick. Sustaining the walls is my work, my child. When your soul returns after a long stretch of wandering, I do not stand waiting at the gate to interrogate how far you have strayed. I do not tally the faults you have committed or present a number to testify to your weakness. I look into your eyes, into the weariness you can no longer hide. into the broken rhythm of your breathing from the battle within. And I ask a single question: what have you learned this time, not so that I may judge you, but so that your soul may open itself before its own gaze? People think that returning must come with explanations, with a reasonable report, with proof that from now on they will never go astray again. But my child, I do not build you with vows, I build you with understanding. When you recognize which voice led you away from me, which empty promise the world placed in your ear, which fatigue caused you to compromise with the darkness, that is the moment your soul begins to mature. I do not ask, "What did you do?" I ask, "Where did you find yourself when you were far from me?" Because that answer becomes the foundation for your next return. My child, I do not want you to slam the door on your past as though it were a total failure. I want you to look at it the way an apprentice looks at a wrong cut, not to despise himself, but to understand how to place the blade next time. Being lost is not your definition. It is simply a lesson that has not yet been named. Like the son in the old story, it was not while he was still in his wild living that he understood the nature of home. It was when his feet turned back toward home that he realized where true worth lay. I do not need you to recount every land you have crossed, or each temptation in which you fell. I need only that you recognize there is no place that gives you life apart from where I am waiting. People love regret. They love excuses. They love reasons. But I love what you discover, that you have seen the hollowness of illusions, that you understand the exhaustion of carrying yourself alone, that you have found the truth that your soul was not designed to live away from me. When you say to me, "I tried to be strong on my own, but I am exhausted," I smile, because that is experience forged in you, not merely a confession of guilt. My child, I have seen many come back to me with hands full of reasons. They speak of circumstances, of pressures, of bad luck, of people who wounded them. But when I ask what they have learned, they fall silent. Their hearts have not yet opened. Do you know the difference between someone who is sorry because they were caught and someone who is sorry because they recognize the wrong road? One tries to wash themselves clean before me. The other simply lifts their face and says, "I did not listen." In that very moment, I see hope. When you dare to look into your soul without covering it, I do not see a failure. I see someone who is growing. In Scripture it is said in many ways that the awakening of the heart is better than offerings brought without understanding. For I do not seek perfect offerings. I seek a heart that bows in the right place. I do not need you to return with a composed face. I need you to return with eyes that know what you have let fall. My child, sometimes you return in tears. Sometimes you return with a weary breath. Sometimes you return in a silence you cannot put into words. I receive all of it. But I will always ask you the same thing. What have you learned from that wandering, I ask, so that you know I am not keeping a record of your sins on some giant blackboard. I am holding your journey in my heart like a river curving its way toward the sea. I ask so that your gaze turns from outward causes to inward movements. I ask so that you may know that a wisdom is sprouting right within your wound, a wisdom that can become the place where I plant strength, not a pit of shame. Do not be afraid to answer me, for your answer is not a verdict, it is a door opening ahead. My child, remember this. I do not use your wandering to reduce you. I use it the way a teacher uses an old test, not to remind you that you failed, but to remind you of what you have understood more clearly now. I see you when you stand up after each fall. I see you when you are tired yet still sweep the dust from your soul. I see you when you dare to say to yourself, "I want to come back." That is why I ask what you have learned, not because I need to know, but because your soul needs to know itself. When you answer me in honesty, I will take your hand and lead you on, not asking, "When will you stumble again?" but asking, "How far do you want to go with me?" And then every return, whether named or unnamed, becomes a stone laid into the road that leads you to the place I have prepared for you. My child, there is a quiet fear hidden in many hearts. They believe that each time they go astray is a blow against their worth, as though they are being worn down little by little, as though their dignity were a thin garment tearing with every wrong step. But I speak to you with eternal certainty. Wandering does not destroy your value. It only exposes the areas where I want to heal. You see yourself as a crumpled sheet of paper, as a cracked porcelain jar. But I see you as a seed pushing its roots outward in search of new soil. That seed is not called a failure because it has not yet broken through the ground. It is simply in the stage of not yet understanding its purpose. You do not lose your way because you are worthless. You lose your way because you have not yet seen the fullness of the worth I have sown in you. Your value does not rise and fall with the number of times you return, nor does it diminish with the number of times you stumble. It rests on the truth I placed into your soul from the beginning. My child, the world often evaluates a soul by what is visible. They look at isolated behaviors they can measure. They turn failures into labels. They treat collapse as the end. But I do not count how many times you have wandered. I count how many times you still open your heart to be led back, like precious metal placed into fire, not to destroy it, but to burn away the impurities. Your soul is the same. The flame does not remove the gold, it simply reveals it in its original form. When you are lost in doubt, I see a longing for peace. When you are lost in weariness, I see a desire to be upheld. When you are lost in temptation, I see the yearning to live in the light. Your true value does not appear when you are flawless. It shines when you are exhausted and yet still have one small whisper left that turns toward me. There are those who believe their worth comes from never making a mistake, like a whitewashed wall that never gathers dust. But my child, which of them truly lives? A pristine wall only stands motionless in the dark, while your soul has walked under sun, wind, and rains. The scratches are not proof of ruin. They are proof that you have moved forward. Just as a skilled craftsman does not boast that the blade has never slipped, but that each slip has made his hand more precise. I do not see your value in never wrong, but in your capacity to return to truth every time you fall. You are a living soul, not a display object. You were made to grow, not to remain untouched. Stains can be wiped away. Walls can be painted again. Trees can be pruned, but none of these ever erase the core of your trunk. My child, I want you to remember one thing. The marks you see as negatives in your life, I see as positives opening into your future. You think that going astray once makes you weaker, but I see that it teaches you where to return. You think that mistakes diminish your value, but I see that they teach you how to listen. You think darkness has swallowed the light within you, but I know the light is still there, simply waiting for you to open the door. Just as a root finds good soil after weaving through stones. No one says that the journey through gravel makes the root useless. It is precisely what allows the tree to stand firm when storms arrive. Your straying is not a pit that destroys you, but a winding road that helps you take deeper root in me. And my child, I never change your value in my eyes. It is not that yesterday I loved you more because you acted rightly. It is not that today I love you less because you stumbled. My love is not built on performance, but on your existence. Hear this and carve it deep within yourself. You do not need to become perfect to be loved. You only need to remain alive and still know how to return. When you come back, I do not greet you with sharp questions. I greet you with the arms of one who never confuses mistakes with worth. So, my child, do not define yourself by detours, storms, or dark stretches of road. You are defined by the place toward which you are returning, and I am that place. There are stretches of the journey where your steps slow, not because of disaster, but because your soul has grown used to running too fast without carrying my breath. Going astray is not a strike to bring you down. It is a gentle response from the spiritual realm, like the sound of waves hitting the side of the boat to remind the rower that the wind has changed direction. The world often sees a wrong turn as failure, but I see it as part of maturation, a lesson not written in books, only written on the soil you have just walked across. The metalworker does not see fire as an enemy, because it is the fire that breaks the hardened shell and leaves behind the refined core. When the soul goes through collisions and scrapes, I do not ask why it failed to avoid them. I ask whether it has learned to recognize the quiet warning I placed inside it. There are souls that crave strength, longing to never be weak, never fall, as if perfection were a prerequisite for my love. But it is not the absence of falls that teaches how to stand. It is the fall that produces balance. Like a student of archery, no one reaches accuracy with a single arrow. They need arrows that veer off course to understand the wind, to feel the pull of the string, to know the moment of release. I do not send missteps to measure your morality. I send them the way a mentor sets one more small challenge, so your eyes will learn to look farther, so your hands will soften instead of clenching in pride. When you return after wandering, what is precious is not the apology, but the softening of the heart. The one who has never hurt does not know how to cherish peace. The one who has never strayed does not know the value of light. I let you walk through barren paths, not to make you miserable, but so you would recognize the scent of green soil when you come home. There is an ancient word: His discipline is not to destroy you, but to bring you near to life. That word is not a threat, but reassurance that my purpose has never been destruction. The fire burns only what is false. The true gold remains intact. There are moments you wish I would shield you from every wrong turn, as though a father should lock his child indoors so that they never stumble. But my love is not blind control. I allow you to go, to touch, to encounter your own limits, so that when you stand again, you do not merely stand, but know where the ground is. No one learns to swim by standing at the edge, looking at the water, only when the body sinks, when the lungs burn for air, when the hands thrash instinctively. Do you understand the value of breath and shore? Your wandering is that salt water. It may sting your eyes. It may tighten your chest. But from it, you learn how to rise. The trials I give are not punishments, but hidden pathways to lead the heart back to its origin. There are moments when you think you have been abandoned, but in truth I am waiting at the end of the hallway for you to walk toward me, so that you might find me by your own will and not through coercion. It is that journey which matures the soul, not the soul that never falls, but the soul that learns to rise through trust. When you stumble, the first thing I look at is not the mistake, but the direction your soul turns. There are those who think stumbling is the reason I judge them, reject them, or turn away. But stumbling has never been my limit. It only reveals yours. I did not create you from cold stone so you would never crack. I created you with a heart that beats, that aches, that trembles, so that when you fall, you would learn to draw life from something beyond yourself. My disappointment is not in the wrong action, but in the moment you choose to hide, to lock your soul, to carry the darkness alone as if I did not exist. In such moments, I call softly, Adam, where are you? That question is not to condemn or to shame. It is the most tender invitation I know that you are hiding. But I want you to know that I am still seeking. There are times you mistake my desire for perfection, imagining that I want you always strong, always steady, never weak. But if you never fell, you would never know how I lift you. The one who has never stumbled does not know how to extend their hand. The one who has never cried does not know the worth of comfort. The one who has never been lost does not know how my silence becomes a bridge back to peace. I am not disappointed when you fall, because I already know there are places in the soul not yet mature, areas not yet bright, wounds not yet healed. Disappointment only appears when you close the door of return, when you say to yourself, I must handle this alone. I am unworthy. I have nowhere to go. For in that moment you do something more painful than the mistake itself. You deny that I am the one who knows you, understands you, and welcomes you. There are souls who turn back the moment they realize they are on the wrong path. And I often see them slow their pace like someone who has just spotted a lamp in the night fog. But there are other souls who, when they stumble, dig deeper into the darkness to conceal themselves. They believe that if they hide long enough, the road will disappear or the memory will stop speaking. But darkness does not know forgiveness. It only knows how to consume the soul. The one who hides is not the one who is safe. The one who hides is simply the one who can no longer see the light, even when the light stands at the door. So when I ask, where are you? I am not asking for a geographical answer. I am asking for an answer of the heart. Do you want to keep hiding? Or do you want to return, I ask, so that you understand I do not come to investigate. I come to seek the one who has forgotten himself. Do not be afraid of your stumblings, for they will pass like seasons of wind. But be watchful over the decision to run away, for it can harden into habit. One act of hiding can lead to twice locking yourself into shame, and layer upon layer of silence can become a wall you no longer dare to cross. When you hide yourself, you become both the one who has fallen and the one who makes yourself an orphan. You cut yourself off from the very source of healing that is seeking you. Like a sick person who locks the door and says, I will be fine, while the wound is still bleeding. I am not disappointed when you are weak, for weakness is the opportunity for me to lift you up. I am only grieved when you choose to remain with the wound, to treat the darkness as home, and to believe you must endure alone. No one was born to bandage their own soul by themselves. Light does not come to expose the strong. It comes to find those who are lost. Remember, this sin is only a sudden rainstorm on the journey, but avoidance turns the rain into a flood. The one who knows to run under a shelter will dry. Only those who stand in the rain, pretending the sky is not wet, are chilled to the bone. When you return, I wipe the drops from your face. When you hide, all I can do is listen to the sound of your heavy breathing behind the wall. I do not reproach you because your feet have slipped. I only sorrow when you refuse my hand as I reach it out. Do not let shame be the reason you move away from me. Shame is the whisper of darkness, but returning is the breath of light. I am not seeking flawless children. I am seeking souls willing to open the door again, even while their hearts are still trembling. I can make all things new. I can wash away mistakes like a craftsman brushing dust from a jewel. But I cannot mend what you lock away in a cave where you will not let me enter. I do not demand an explanation. I do not need a perfectly arranged story to listen to. I only need you to say, here I am. As I once asked Adam, I still ask you today, not because I do not know, but because I want you to know that my love searches for the soul before it ever searches for a reason. You may stumble once, many times, so many times you lose count. I do not keep track of the number. I look at one thing only, whether you come back or not. Peace is not a crown awarded to the winner after a long competition, nor is it a gift reserved only for the morally perfect. Peace is like breath, not something you go to find at the end of the road, but something that is already there the moment you linger long enough to be aware of me. Many souls think peace is a reward they receive after they have fixed themselves, corrected their faults, stood up neatly, and presented a version of themselves without scratches. But peace does not ask you to reach a certain standard. It comes when you stand beside me, not to prove yourself worthy, but to admit that it is all right if you are weak, all right if you do not understand yet, as long as you are here. The one who seeks peace by personal effort will only find a new burden. But the one who steps toward me will realize that peace is not a destination, but the atmosphere I create around the soul, like a breeze in a garden that does not require flowers to bloom in season before it passes through. My peace does not wait for you to meet any condition before it rests upon you. There are days when you think peace is a milestone, when everything has settled, when every relationship is calm, when every accusation has gone silent. But the world does not operate like a math problem with a single solution. There is always something unfinished, always a dim corner, a vague worry, an empty space not yet filled. If you wait for everything to be perfect before receiving peace, you will wait until your mind is drained and your emotions have turned to stone. I do not require you to subdue the whole world before you are allowed to rest. I invite you to step into peace while the storm is still rising in the distance, like a fisherman placing his hand on the rudder, knowing the sea is still moving but his heart no longer panics. My peace is not the absence of waves, but the strength that keeps you from crashing against the rocks. Those who go looking for storms to conquer will exhaust themselves. Those who look for me in the storm will stand firm. There are souls who confuse peace with outward quiet, so they flee from noise, slip away from responsibility, withdraw from others. They think silence is shelter, but the silence of creation is different from the silence of escape. My silence clears the mind. The silence of running away clouds the heart. Peace does not come from leaving the world, but from standing with me in the very midst of it, like a child stepping into the water while its hand rests in the palm of the guide, not because the water has become shallow, but because the child is no longer alone. Peace does not remove all danger, it simply removes fear. The one who stays near me is not the one who never trembles, but the one who trembles and yet knows they will not fall. Sometimes you ask why. After you have prayed, tried, and changed, peace still has not returned. You forget that peace is not evidence of your achievements, but the fruit of surrender. Sometimes I do not give peace through words you speak in prayer, but through the moment you release your need to be in control. That is when the heart stops demanding answers, stops insisting on proof, stops trying to construct a safe plan. The one who stands beside me does not need to know the entire route, because they know I have gone ahead. Scripture says you will keep in perfect peace those whose minds are stayed on you, because they trust in you. That word does not ask for witnesses, does not mention outcomes. It speaks only of position. The mind stayed on you. Peace is always found there, not in the place you are trying to reach by running. When you are with me, circumstances may not have changed, but you have. The wound may be the same, but it no longer cuts with the same sharpness. The road may be the same, but your feet no longer slide. Stability does not come from a guaranteed future, but from the knowledge that I will not leave you. Like a stone awning above the doorway, unable to stop the rain from falling, but able to keep the drops from striking your head. My presence does not remove every hardship, but it removes the feeling of abandonment. My peace is not the shout of victory after the battle. It is the fact that you are still standing when every trial seemed ready to pull you to the ground. No one can steal that peace from you, because it does not lie in human hands. It lies in the heart of the one who is always near. Peace is not a state you must strain to create. It is the whisper I place in the deepest place of your soul, where no accusation from this world can reach. When you are tired from trying, exhausted from struggling, discouraged by repeated failures, I do not come to interrogate you. I come to place a single sentence in your heart: I still trust you. It is that sentence that loosens the weight on your chest, that slows the shaking within, that causes the thoughts obsessed with proving your worth to begin dissolving. Peace does not arrive like lightning or a grand miracle. It comes like water seeping slowly into dry roots, making the tree stop curling in on itself under the heat. People ask you, have you changed yet? Are you worthy yet? But I ask you, are you willing to let me trust you once more? That question is what frees you from the burden of condemning yourself. There are moments when peace comes not because you have done the right thing, but because you have stopped trying to prove that you are right. Like a boat that ceases its frantic rowing in the night and suddenly hears the whisper of the sea. Your soul needs only to release its self-accusations to recognize that I have been beside you all along. I do not wait for you to become flawless before entrusting you. I entrust you so that you will have the strength to keep becoming whole. When you make mistakes, you often look up at me with fear, asking, "Do you still place hope in me?" But I placed hope in you from long before you knew how to speak, before you understood the meaning of failure and success. That hope is not sustained by your ability to control yourself, but by what I have planted in you, the capacity to rise even after you stumble, the capacity to return even after you have gone far. You only need to remember this peace is not the feeling of, "I am fine," but the understanding that I have not been abandoned. There are times you think peace is a reward for the strong, but my peace does not come to those who are confident they can master everything. It comes to those who know they cannot. Peace arises when you no longer flee from either the light or the darkness, when you dare to let me look into the cracked places you have hidden away. In that space, I do not ask, "Why did you do that?" I ask, "Now how would you like me to walk with you?" From that question, peace begins to spread like warm fire, not dispelling every cold wind, but softening the frost in your heart. You will realize that peace is not an outcome, but a relationship. Each time you allow me to stand beside you, peace becomes the atmosphere around you, not something to hold or defend, but something in which you learn to simply live. When you are afraid that you missed your chance, I answer with a quietness no one can argue with. I still trust you. When you see others moving ahead and tell yourself that you are slow, I say again, I still trust you. When you fear your prayer is too weak, too clumsy, I do not correct you. I only say I still trust you. These words do not exist to comfort your emotions. They exist to define you by light instead of failure. Like a lamp hung above a doorway, not to punish the darkness, but to show a lost traveler the way home. Peace is the phrase I place in the deepest part of your mind, so you no longer need to keep searching for validation. You do not need victory to deserve it. You only need to open the door for me to enter. My peace is not the sentence "you did well," but you are still trusted by me. It is that trust that makes you stand. Not because you have conquered every weakness, but because you have realized you do not need to be stronger to be loved by me. I saw you from the time you did not know the road. I see you even when you cover yourself in fog, and I know you more deeply than the words you speak to yourself. When I say I still trust you, it is not approval because you are good enough. It is the affirmation that my love is not altered by your missteps. And from that truth, peace is born not as a condition, but as a heartbeat, subtle, steady, unpretentious. I do not look at you through what is unfinished. I look through what I have planted within you from the beginning. Just as the sower does not judge the value of a seed while it is still beneath the soil, I do not see you through your current shape, but through the hidden potential I placed in your soul. There are seeds that lie silent beneath the dark earth for many days. From the outside, they appear lifeless. Passers-by may say that the soil is useless, that the season has passed, that nothing will sprout. But the one who sows knows beneath the surface is the strength preparing to break through. The silence of the seed is not the sign of failure, but part of its maturation. I look at you the same way, not through the dry surface, not through the delays, not through the days when you believe yourself lost. I look through the future I planted in you long before you knew how to name yourself. There was a time when the disciples looked at Simon as someone impulsive, unstable, fearful under pressure. They saw a man who faltered in the hour of testing, one who could deny what he believed when danger approached. But I did not call him Simon, I called him Rock. I did not look at the moment he trembled, I looked at the foundation I would build through his life. When I placed a future upon him, it was not a shallow encouragement, but the blueprint of a spiritual structure not yet complete. You are the same if you see yourself only through your mistakes and instinctive reactions. You will see smallness, but when I look at you, I see the wall you have not finished building, the bridge you have not yet crossed, the souls who will be reached through things that seem ordinary in your life. I trust you not because you are fully formed, but because I know the form you will carry when I complete you. There are seeds that look frail, slender, lying beside larger seeds that are stronger and easier to notice. People judge them by appearance and forget that the seeds planted deep often root deeper. When the storm arrives, the fast-growing trees may be uprooted, while the slow-growing ones, whose roots extend into the hidden layers, stand firm. I do not need you to be tall the moment you break the soil. I need you to keep the life within. I trust you not because you have risen above the earth in every season, but because I see the roots pushing downward quietly, passing through hard stone, reaching toward a well your eyes have not yet seen. Those who walk past may call you stagnant, may think you slow, may wonder why you have not reached the height they expect. But I know you are preparing not merely to survive, but to shelter weaker souls. There is an old story about Joseph, a young man sold into slavery, falsely accused, imprisoned in darkness. He looked at himself and saw only a string of failures. But I saw the steward of a kingdom, the one who would save an entire people in the days of famine. When he was at the bottom, I had already seen the throne. When he was forgotten, I had already seen the appointed moment of remembrance. When he could not understand why he suffered injustice, I had already seen the doors opening that no one could close. I trusted him not because his circumstances promised anything, but because the future I placed within his soul was stronger than every outward event. You do not need favorable circumstances for me to trust you. You only need to preserve the life I have sown. I trust you not because you are strong, but because the seed I placed in you is strong. Not because you know everything, but because you are willing to learn. Not because you have never stumbled, but because you can rise and return. The future I give you is not a glorious vision reserved for someone else. It is a reality already unfolding in the small steps you believe no one notices. Every time you forgive when you could have retaliated, every time you choose to slow down instead of reacting, every time you keep gentleness, though your heart is swollen with pain, that is when I see the green shoot breaking through the earth above it. And when I say I trust you, it is not temporary encouragement. It is the way I summon your future into your present. There are stumbles that make you believe everything I have spoken about your future has turned to ashes. You bow your head before your faults and think, I have ruined it. But you do not understand that my promise for you is not written in sand for the winds of life to erase. It is engraved into your soul as a seal no one can remove. Your missteps are not red marks crossing out your destiny. They are simply stretches of road that teach you how much you need me. I do not retract my word every time you fail. I do not wait for perfect steps before affirming your value. I trust you because my word is stronger than your wounds, deeper than the rumors of fear, more enduring than the tremors of emotion. Mistakes are not the lock that closes the future. They are the place where you learn how to walk forward while your knees still tremble. When you stumble, you always want to hide, hoping no one will see. You fear the eyes of people. You fear judgment. You fear that someone will remember that moment of weakness as the one true story of who you are. But I do not see as people see. I do not confine you to the moment you collapse. I see you through the entirety of the process I am leading you through. There was once a man who fell 3 times in a single night, trembling before the questioning of the crowd. denying the love he once claimed. If we looked only at that moment, he would be nothing but a failure. But I did not see him through the moment of fear. I saw him through the meal beside the shore of Galilee afterward. When I asked, "Do you love me?" not to remind him of the old wound, but to open a new future. You see a fall, I see a beginning. You see shame, I see a place to pour my grace. You once thought my promise would disappear when you were not strong enough to uphold it. But my promise does not rely on your strength to hold it. My promise rests on my strength to hold you. When you are weary, I do not ask you to run, I only ask that you do not hide. When you fall, I do not demand explanations. I only ask that you turn your face toward me. The accusations you speak to yourself do not alter my plan. You may say, "I destroyed everything." I will only respond, "I have never walked away from your building site." Like a craftsman who gathers the broken pottery, not to throw it away, but to mend it into a shape more resilient, I continue working in the places you believed were beyond repair. I do not retreat from the cracks. I turn them into the places where light enters. Sometimes you believe that your falls are heavenly rejections, as if every mistake is a minus carved into the ledger of your soul. But I have never measured you by how many times you fall. I measure you by how many times you return. A human life may walk through hundreds of tired days, dozens of nights of doubt, and countless moments of unsteadiness. But a single moment of turning back is enough to change the direction of the soul. You do not understand the power of returning. It is not a small action. It is a spiritual declaration that the promise is still alive. When you turn back to me, you declare that my word is stronger than your failure, and that the future I planted in you still has room to grow. I trust you because I did not lay your foundation upon perfection, but upon a promise spoken before you ever knew what failure was. I had already seen the seasons when you would be weak, the days you would mistake your way, the nights you would want to give up, and I still chose you. If my word could be destroyed by your mistakes, I would never have spoken it. If the light I placed in you could be extinguished by a strong wind, I would never have called you to step into the storm. I trust you not because I am blind to your falls, but because I see through them to the good I am preparing to bloom from your very wounds. There are days when you return to me not because your heart is burning, but because of a small whisper inside your soul that says, "This is where you belong." On those days, there is no flash of light, no sweetness, no trembling words of revelation. It is only a quiet step, slow, sometimes heavy like legs at the end of a long day. But in those emotionless returns, I see what few ever recognize, that faithfulness is not sustained by temporary experiences. Like the musician sitting by the instrument in the evening, no audience, no lights, no praises, only hands, practicing each note with patience. You return to me, not because you feel strong or inspired, but because you know what is right for your soul. I trust you not because you feel close to me, but because you keep walking toward me even when your emotions are silent. You once believed that returning only had value when you longed for me, when your heart burned, when tears fell in recognition of my love. But such moments are only the springtime of faith, beautiful, pleasant, easy to love. I look deeper into the winter of your soul, when the temperature of emotion drops, when every thought asks, "What is the point of this?" In that very time, you still place small steps on the familiar path. You do not come to seek reward. You do not come to seek validation. You do not come to prove anything. You come because you know I am your home. I see the prayers without tears, the pages of Scripture opened only for a few lines and then closed again. The small but honest whispers, "Help me." These moments do not echo in the world, but in my realm. They shine like stars, slowly forming in the long night. Sometimes you ask, "What makes you trust me?" You think the answer lies in the moments you were full of passion and light. But I tell you, the trust I place in you grows from the times you step forward, even when your soul is not driven by emotion. I see you not chasing excitement, not waiting for spectacular signs, not needing comfort to do what is right. In those moments, you are like the student who repeats the difficult notes, not because today's sound is beautiful, but because you know that skill is forged through endurance. Others look on and hear nothing but dull repetition, meaningless and dry. But the teacher behind them sees the hands becoming steadier, the fingers finding the right position, and knows that one day the full melody will appear. I am that teacher for you. You do not need to feel close to me to truly be close to me. There are moments when the soul is arid like soil after a dry season, yet you still choose to pour a single cup of water, just a small plea, just a minute of silence, just one step of return. Do not underestimate such small things. Emotion is the softness of faith, but choice is its backbone. Feelings shift with the day, the weather, the body, but the quiet decisions rooted in the awareness that I remain, your source, are what endure. I trust you, not because you always feel me, but because you have learned how to return to me even when you feel nothing. I have seen many souls who come to me only when their inspiration swells, when prayer feels like a symphony, when every sign is radiant, but inspiration always fades. Those souls drift away when the flame cools, when the sky returns to gray, when prayer dries and no longer feels sacred. You are not like them. You have learned that spiritual life is not measured by the heat of emotion, but by the endurance of the heart. I do not seek children who come to me only when everything glitters. I seek souls who know how to walk in the dim evenings, who return when every song has fallen silent. Such souls may not resound in the eyes of the world, but I know them. I see them, and I place my trust in them. A calling is not born from the desire to be great in the eyes of the world, nor from ambition to prove oneself right. It grows within souls who once wandered but patiently returned to me, like a small river that never forgets how to find the sea, even when blocked by stones and soil. Ambition may create noise, may raise great waves for a moment, but those waves dissolve quickly upon the shore when their force is gone. A calling is like the underground stream, quiet, steady, unpretentious, yet slowly saturating every dry crevice, bringing life back to ground. No one is watching. When you return during the days that seem meaningless, when you rise from failures no one sees, you are stepping into the calling I have prepared, not because you wish to ascend, but because you no longer wish to live apart from your source. A soul driven by ambition always asks, how can I achieve? But the soul that knows how to return asks, how can I remain faithful? I do not look for those who climb quickly. I look for those who turn back when they realize they are walking in the wrong direction. You may once have thought that calling was reserved for those who never fail, those who shine brightly in faith or whose lives are smooth and unbroken. But I say to you, I use souls who know how to misstep, who have known pain, who have known confusion, but who never allow their wandering to become their identity. Calling does not arise from the perfect light surrounding you. It arises from the place where you once walked through darkness and still chose to turn toward me. When you return, you do not only return to your source of life, you return to the place where I can work through you. People often treat purpose like a lofty summit to be conquered by effort, by proving themselves, by attracting applause. But I see calling as a current. You do not need to display it. For it to have value, you only need not freeze your soul. Those who pursue ambition try to build staircases to stand above others. Those who know how to return simply learn to place each step toward me. Gradually, those small steps become the very path that leads others into peace. When you do not flee from your stumbles, when you admit that you need me, when you return because you do not want to lose the rhythm of the Spirit, I begin to use your very journey to help weak souls realize that they, too, can return. There are times when you look around and see those who have achieved much, and you feel small, insufficient, without influence. But you forget that spiritual influence does not come from spotlight. It comes from the gravity of peace. Those who pursue ambition create noise. Those who know how to return create space. You have stood amidst chaotic conversations, criticism, and displays of ego, and you chose silence not because you were weak, but because you did not want to lose your way back to me. That small choice was not meaningless. It sent a signal that this soul does not operate by the world's logic. You may not know it, but when you stand there with a heart still aching and still choose my rhythm, the troubled souls around you begin to sense something different, a stream of water that does not roar, yet soothes their thirst. Calling is yours because you have learned the direction of return. I do not entrust it to those who only know how to move forward. I entrust it to souls who know how to correct their course when it drifts, who know how to pause when the mind grows loud, who know how to return even when joy has faded and fire no longer burns. This calling does not demand that you become someone else. It demands that you remain faithful to the way back, because in that very place, I awaken your influence. A soul that knows how to return is never useless in my hands, for I can place them into any circumstance, and instead of becoming just another voice in the chaos, they become the breath of hope. There is a profound difference between a soul that seeks to shine and a soul that accepts being my conduit. The one who seeks to shine always asks, "How can everyone see me?" While the one who lets me flow through them asks, "How can the light pass through me without being obstructed?" You are learning the second. Light is not a performance. It is life. A lamp does not strain to shine by force of will. It simply needs to be connected to its source. Water does not strive to become soft or clear. It only needs to flow in the right direction. When you stop trying to make the world acknowledge you, you become a place through which I pass, and others begin to feel presence rather than display. I trust you here, because I have seen you remain quiet when you could have boasted, seen you step aside so others could be seen. I've seen you choose gentleness, even when it brought you no attention. Those small choices are not timid humility. They are declarations that you do not wish to be the source of light, because you have understood that I am the source. Do not think that I need you to be a brilliant flare in the night to prove my presence. A spotlight dazzles the eyes, but no heart opens because of it. I often choose the small hallway lamp, just bright enough for the lost to walk without stumbling. Those who seek to shine want to be seen. Those who let me flow through them want others to see the way. When you walk into a room with peace and eyes that do not judge, you do not create a striking impression, but you create a space where others dare to breathe. When you refrain from entering an argument, when you do not allow the instinct to win to consume you, you are letting light pass through instead of reflecting it back onto yourself. The world calls it weakness. I call it a channel. The strong in my eyes are not those who possess the most fire, but those who have enough inner space for the light to not be confined. There are times when you imagine that for me to use you, you must have wise words, must say things that move people, must do something exceptional. But I do not look for faces that know how to speak at the right time. I look for souls clear enough that I can speak through them. Like a hollow flute that does not hold the breath for itself. You do not need to create a melody. You only must not choke the air I breathe through you. When you stand before someone who is wounded and simply sit beside them, without lecturing, without trying to elevate yourself with advice, you are allowing me to flow through presence itself. When you forgive with no audience to witness, you open a path for an invisible stream to sow seeds into another heart. All of these happen in that quiet light I cherish, where resonance comes not from applause, but from the resurrection of the soul. Many have asked why I do not use the brightest ones. But my child, brilliant light often blocks the way more than it guides it. That brightness demands attention, recognition, praise. It wants others to stand still and admire. I do not need someone in the square shouting their spirituality. I need quiet steps, hearts that know how to return, souls who understand that greatness does not lie in volume, but in depth. When you allow me to flow through you, you become like groundwater. People may not see you, but they drink from the source you carry, and their lives are uplifted because of it. No one may know your name. No one may honor your effort. But I know, and in my kingdom, that is the highest form of service. Do not try to shine. You will exhaust yourself. You will compare. You will struggle to preserve the image you have built. But when you let me flow through you, you grow light. You do not need to prove anything. You do not need to maintain emotion. You do not need to store up praise to sustain yourself. The source comes from me. The flow passes through you, and your life becomes a quiet testimony, a sign that does not demand bowed heads, but simply points the way. You are not the light, you are the window. The light comes from me, and as long as you do not close yourself, I will continue to pass through you to comfort, to heal, and to awaken souls who have gone astray. There are moments when you think that real impact must come with applause, must be acknowledged by people, must have someone stand up and testify that you changed their life. But here is the secret of my kingdom. The deepest things do not echo in the public square. They take root in the hearts of quiet souls. You sow a gentle word and assume no one noticed. You choose not to respond to an insult and assume it did not save anything. You lay your hand on the shoulder of someone confused, tell them they are not alone, and assume you have done something small. But, my beloved soul, such moments never pass in vain. They sink like seeds resting beneath the soil, unseen, uncounted, unpraised, and as time goes on, those very seeds become the place where others find shade, the place where they stop and realize someone once believed in them, even when they could not bring themselves to believe in their own worth. Your impact is not loud because I do not build spiritual realities with fireworks. I build with silent bricks. Each time you choose kindness instead of bitterness, that is one brick. Each time you forgive instead of retaliating, another brick. Each time you accept losing something so that another may keep their peace, another brick again. A sturdy house is not raised by brief performances of brilliance, but by each layer of the foundation set in its proper place. Those who walk past an unfinished structure do not see the endurance within it. They only see half-built walls and a roof not yet complete. But the craftsman knows every screw, every beam, every patient hour. So do I. I witness the hours no one sees, the acts no one remembers, the prayers you barely dare whisper in the middle of the night. These are the very things that shape true strength, not strength that dazzles, but strength that bears my imprint. You will not always get to see the results of what you do. Sometimes you are only the one who sows, and someone else will reap. Sometimes you are only the one who opens the smallest window in the wall of someone's soul, and I am the one who lets light slip in. I do not require you to see blossoms in order to know that the seed has taken root. Remember those you have met on your journey, a word spoken in just the right moment that pulled you back from collapse, a gaze without judgment that helped you stand up straight, a gentle gesture that erased the shame in your heart. Those people never knew they had rescued you from the edge. They simply lived as usual, and the light passing through them reached you. You are becoming that kind of person to souls you may never realize you have touched. Salvation does not always arrive with a shout. Often it is just a hand on a shoulder, enough to keep someone from collapsing. I do not want you carrying the burden of having to make an impact. I want you to live like a rhythm, steady, enduring, unpretentious, When you return after every fall, that very return is your testimony. When you begin again even while your heart is still unsure, that beginning itself is a teaching. When you refuse to trade my peace for human praise, that steadfastness is influence. Water does not carve a mountain in one day. It wears it down little by little, year after year, generation after generation. Sunrise does not banish the night with thunder. It quietly spreads strips of gold across the sky. I want you to understand that true impact is not that you make people look at you, but that they begin to look toward me because you have stood in your rightful place. In quietness, you escape the trap of comparison. The one who seeks attention will always place themselves next to others and ask who shines more. But the one who lets me flow through them asks instead, where is light still lacking? The one who seeks fame wants to leave a mark. The one who knows how to return wants to leave life behind. Your impact may never be recorded in history books, never mentioned in conversations, never repeated in grand stories. Yet heaven records every drop of water you give the thirsty, every word you use to shield the weak, every time you endure to preserve peace in the smallest place. These things form a rhythm the world has no name for. But I know it, and I use it to restore souls that have been torn. There are souls who imagine that growth in me must come with some great event, a blazing sign, a single moment that changes everything. But I have always taught you through small, repeated, uncelebrated rhythms, the morning you open your eyes and step into the day with gratitude. Even when there is nothing anyone would call remarkable, the night you kneel before sleep simply to thank me that you are still breathing, the moment in the middle of the day when you pause rather than release a harsh word, even though it costs you. It is in these seemingly ordinary moments that the spiritual rhythm is formed. It is not loud, not rushed, not showy. It is like a small stream running through rock, patiently softening every edge until you find yourself gentler, kinder, and closer to me. I have never called you to become a hero overnight. I only invite you to choose me in your quietest hours, and in this way, day by day, your soul is built into a home. Remember the image of the shepherd from the ancient writings. It was not when David defeated Goliath that I chose him. That was only the moment the world saw what I had already seen. I was watching him when he still kept the sheep in the wilderness when the lion came. He did not run when the bear came. He did not seek someone else to fight for him. He stood up, not because anyone was watching, but because the life I had placed in him would not allow him to abandon what he was entrusted with. That is spiritual rhythm, not bold declarations before the crowd, but repeated faithfulness when no one knows. When he played the harp for a tormented king, every small vibration of the string was not to honor himself. It was the breathing of a soul accustomed to dwelling in me. You may not see yourself as David, but I have seen in you many moments no one has witnessed: the nights you cried and still prayed, the mornings you were tired and still chose kindness, the moments you were disappointed and still guarded peace in your heart. These rhythms are what form the strength I use, not the spectacular victories you dream about. The rhythm of spiritual life is not an explosion of emotion, it is the habit of faith. There are times when you feel me very near, and times when you sense only silence, like a sky without wind. Yet you still choose to return, still choose to keep a small prayer, still choose not to shut your heart. When you no longer depend on emotion to do what is right, when you continue even with an empty feeling inside, you are stepping into the deepest ground of the relationship between me and your soul. Like the potter spinning the wheel slowly, steadily his hands rest upon the clay and do not leave until the form appears. I do the same. I do not shape you with rare moments, I shape you with your continuance. Every time you return after a fall, every time you decide to begin again, every time you brush the dust off your heart to stand up, I place my hand on you once more, refining the outline, smoothing the sharp edges, teaching you that the journey of the soul is not a race, but a life of perseverance. The world always directs you toward outcomes. They tell you that your worth lies in how much you achieve, how many people know your name, how many applaud. But I look to the direction of your heart. I ask how many times you took another step when no one cheered. I ask how many times you held on to peace when it brought you no benefit. I ask how many times you chose to love when it was not returned. A steady spiritual rhythm does not come from ambition, but from faithfulness. It is like a candle burning through the night in a quiet sanctuary, making no sound, seeking no attention, simply doing what it was made to do, bring light into the dark. Some souls never realize they themselves are that candle, because they expect to blaze like a torch. But I know every breath you offer, every moment you hold back a sharp word, every time you choose to return, and I use these things to build you into a place where I may rest. If you are wondering whether this slow rhythm of living has any meaning, I tell you that it is the foundation of every mission you will carry. The one who builds a house does not begin with the dome, he begins with the soil beneath the foundation. A soldier does not begin with the sword, he begins with discipline. The one who belongs to me does not begin with miracles, they begin with daily response. A resilient spiritual life does not need bells ringing across great distances. It needs a heart that knows how to return, that knows how to listen in the silence, that knows how to trust in me when no one else understands. When you choose that rhythm, you no longer live to prove yourself, but to walk in union with me, and there, your influence will flow into the world as a quiet current no force can resist. There are souls who believe that to guide others, they must speak with commanding language, recount overwhelming experiences, or possess visible evidence that I have intervened. But true support does not come from those brilliant moments. It comes from the steadfastness you maintain when no one is watching. You do not lift someone by standing on a mountaintop and calling them to climb. You lift them by placing your feet on the ground, standing where they tremble, and showing them that peace is not a reward after victory, but the state of a soul that knows how to lean on me with every breath. When you walk through the days with patience without showing off, without anger, because life has not moved according to your will, you become a sheltering roof where other souls can rest from the rain. They do not need you to speak loudly, they only need to know that beside you, they are allowed to exhale without being judged. I see many in the world race to become masters, to be acknowledged as leaders, to exert influence through bold declarations. But influence that comes from me does not operate that way. Consider the image of the farmer who rises quietly each morning. He does not boast about each time he sows, nor does he take pictures of each field to show the village. He simply sows, then waters, then waits, and repeats. It is not only the harvest that reveals the weight of his life, it is the repeated seasons of sowing that shape him. Step by step, you also become one who upholds others in the same way. You sow peace into a tense conversation by keeping silence at the right moment. You sow kindness into a heart that hates itself by speaking a single gentle sentence, "It's okay." You sow hope into a confused soul simply by sitting beside them, not trying to fix them, only being present. Those who have not yet tasted me will never understand why these things are powerful. But the angels in heaven know it is precisely that quiet repetition that becomes a support stronger than any eloquent sermon. There is something I want you to understand more deeply. You do not need to become someone special to be used by me. I do not choose those who stand on the highest platforms. I choose those who have open hands. When you stop trying to perform a role, you become a purer conduit. Look back at the moments I used you without your knowing, a message sent only to check in that made someone stop and not fall into panic, a decision to stay with a silent friend so they would know they were not invisible, a gentle look given to someone ashamed, allowing them to understand that not everyone comes to condemn. You do not know what those moments spared others from. I know, and I have recorded every one of them, like a shepherd counting each sheep returning to the fold at nightfall. Do not evaluate your worth by how impressive your actions appear. That is the world's standard, not mine. In my kingdom, a single honest word can fill a void larger than an entire speech. One act of restraint can preserve a relationship on the verge of breaking. One embrace can keep a soul from the edge of despair. You cannot see those deep effects, for I shield them from the pride of your heart. You sow, then I cover, and I cause them to grow at the moment when the one receiving is ready. Sometimes you are only the one who lays the first stone, another will raise the wall. Sometimes you are only the one who knocks gently at the door, I will open it from the inside. I do not call you to save the world by your strength. I call you to lift the world by your faithfulness. When you live within that steady rhythm, you begin to strengthen others, not by pulling them forward, but by helping them believe the path home can always be walked again. The despairing watch how you rise after stumbling, and they learn that failure is not the end. The fearful watch how you take small steps, and they learn that approaching me does not require great courage, only a humble heart. The weary watch how you pray quietly through long nights, and they learn that intimacy with me is not a sudden eruption of spiritual energy, but the steady conversation between two souls who know one another. You are not a messenger of thunder. You are a witness of the wind that moves through the trees, gentle, constant, and yet it sets the leaves in motion and drives the roots deeper. There are mornings when you open your eyes and feel no movement in your heart, no excitement, no spiritual spark, no sign of miracle, only an ordinary morning, with the faint exhaustion lingering from the night before and responsibilities calling your name. The world teaches you that such moments are evidence of failure, that you have lost your fire, lost your faith, lost your drive. But I see those mornings differently. I see you getting up though you have no feeling pushing you forward. I see you praying even when you sense no stirring within. I see you choosing gentleness when the world inside you feels cold. And it is there that true faith begins to grow. Emotions are the first winds of the season, easy to come, easy to go. Faith, however, is the sail that does not tear even in the fiercest storm. You do not need to feel me for me to be present. You only need to return so that I may take my place within your day. I used the ones in the old scriptures not when they were full of inspiration, but when they had only obedience left. Remember Elijah, when he hid in the cave, body weary, spirit drained, with no strength left to speak of power. I did not appear in the violent wind, nor the earthquake, nor the blazing fire. I came in a still, small voice, not because I wanted him excited again, but because I wanted him to know that faith is not sustained by noise. He had already done the great deeds. He had stood before the people. He had called down fire from heaven, yet I preserved him in the moment of hopeless exhaustion, so he would learn to walk without needing a divine explosion to propel him. You are the same. You may have experienced me in strong moments, but the long journey will not be carried by those bursts. It will be carried by each small step you take when you see nothing but silence, yet still choose to endure. Do not confuse silence with abandonment. A potter does not speak to the clay spinning on the wheel. He simply lays his hands on it, steadily, without noise. A blacksmith does not need to shout for the glowing steel to know it is being forged. He simply plunges it into water, again and again, repeating the motion. So it is with your soul. When you walk through dry days, I am laying my hand gently upon you, not to give you a fragile excitement, but to teach you how to bear weight, how to stand upright when nothing seems to support you except your will to remain with me. And precisely when you walk through that dryness, step by step, without brilliance, without emotion, you begin to carry a weight that those who live only on surface experiences will never have. There are things I entrust only to those who have passed through the desert, not because I enjoy testing them, but because the desert is the place where feelings are no longer sufficient to guide your steps. You cannot walk by spiritual fire when the dry wind has blown out every flame. You can only walk by choice. You choose to pray when your mouth is parched. You choose to forgive when your heart is weary. You choose to do what is right when your eyes see no future. And those choices, repeated, ordinary, unseen, are precisely where you become a disciple. I do not look at those choices as isolated actions, but as each heartbeat speaking to me. I return, even when I feel nothing. I do not need you to be dazzling. I need you to be real. There will be days when you think walking like this is meaningless. You will ask yourself, if I feel nothing, is this still faith? I tell you, this is faith. Emotion is the gift I give so you may taste the first flavor. Faith is the answer you offer when that flavor has faded. You do not need feelings to love me. You do not need enthusiasm to return. You do not need evidence to know you still belong to me. Like a musician practicing alone in an empty room, he does not play for an audience, nor rehearse for applause. Each time he lays his fingers on the keys, he is strengthening a language deep in his muscles. Then one day, when the melody rises, people will say he is naturally gifted. They do not know that the dry, repetitive, emotionless hours were the foundation of that sound. Your soul is practicing its scales in the same way, training so that one day I may sing through you. There is a moment in the spiritual journey when you no longer live to be upheld, but become the place where other souls come when they are tired, confused, and do not know how to remain standing. That does not happen when you feel strong, nor when you are at your peak, and even less when you blaze with intense emotion. That place is born when you learn to walk without needing inspiration, when you know how to return to me in silence, when you understand that perseverance is not a state of exhilaration, but a decision repeated day after day. A soul that has passed through seasons of drought, that has learned to pray while the heart feels empty, that has kept its peace without any words of encouragement. That soul does not need many words. It stands like a milestone by the road, not ostentatious, simply present. And because of that, weary souls find a place to lean. In a spiritual community, true support is not found in bold declarations, but in a presence deep enough for others to feel safe to stop. People will not ask you how many miracles you have seen, how many verses you have memorized, or how many great works you have accomplished. Deep down, they are asking, have you ever collapsed like I have? Have you ever waited as long as I am waiting? Have you ever kept going when you felt absolutely nothing, and when your soul has walked those same paths? Your answer becomes a shelter. You do not need to retell your journey as a trophy. You simply sit beside them as someone who has lived through what they are living. I do not place you in community so that you may shine. I place you there so you may be the ground. The ground is not carved with patterns, nor signed with a name. Yet everything in the house stands because of it. Remember that souls who have never crossed a desert tend to speak with zeal, but they only know how to point on a map. Souls who have crossed the desert speak with calm, and they show the way with the footprints of their own steps. That calm is not coldness. It is the deep knowing that I am still there even when all emotion has vanished. When others are shaken, you do not hand them formulas, you hand them truth. I have been there, and I kept walking. It is this kind of experience that strengthens the pillars, not the stories of spectacular mountaintops, but the stories of roads no one saw. A mature spiritual community is not built by those shouting victory, but by those whose healed scars have taught them not to run away. I want you to understand that you become a pillar not because you are superior, but because you do not give up. A pillar is not an ornament in the temple, it bears weight. It carries load. It stands in silence. People lean on it when the storm comes, but few return to thank it. And that is its glory. Its value is not measured by how many decorations it holds, but by its ability to keep the house from collapsing. You will see souls coming to you, not because you solve their problems, but because sitting beside you, they no longer feel ashamed of their weakness. You do not need to push them, fix them, or prove anything. You only need the perseverance within you to say that it is possible to stand without feeling, and that alone will help them rise. There will be an afternoon that seems entirely ordinary, when the sun tilts toward the end of the day, and you sit quietly within yourself and ask, how do I know I am on the right path? There is no thunder, no sign in the sky, no blazing dream to confirm it, only a long silence. And your eyes turn back over the way you have come. You do not see great exploits, nor dazzling moments, nor praise or impressive achievements. What you see are the days you fell and got back up. The mornings you were exhausted, yet still rose from bed. The nights you felt nothing and still whispered, keep me in your ways. In that silence, I draw near to you, not with a loud call, but with a gentle question. Do you remember that I have seen every single turn of your return? You often think that I only appear at decisive moments when you win a great battle, when you do something admirable in the eyes of the world, when you achieve a success that others must acknowledge. But my guarded soul, I do not dwell in the noise of accomplishment. I am in the small kitchen where you sigh and still choose tenderness toward your family. I am where you walk through the crowded street and keep your heart from losing its peace. I am in the moments you think no one notices, because I have never taken my eyes off you. You have walked, not because you saw the reward ahead, but because you did not want to step out of my rhythm. That is faith. Not the faith of those who shout loudly, but the faith of souls who have been exhausted and still return, because they know that returning is home. I have seen the nameless moments of your return without background music, without witnesses, without applause. You stand before two choices, to resist or to keep peace, and you choose peace. You stand before judgment, and instead of striking back, you choose to listen. You stand before disappointment, and instead of allowing bitterness to claim your soul, you choose to speak a gentle word. The whole world may ignore those choices, but I record every one of them, for they are the bricks that build the spiritual house of your life. No great tower ever rises suddenly in the desert. It is raised through each layer of foundation, every panel placed in its rightful position. That rhythm, small, steady, is what has made you into a place where I may dwell. And when you have become resilient enough to walk without needing emotion, you begin to carry a light that others cannot explain. You do not try to shine, yet people feel peace when they are near you. You do not try to become a model, yet they see encouragement in your perseverance. You do not try to lead, yet they come to you because they know you do not run when faith grows silent. I have turned your returns into a pillar, not to elevate you as an icon, but so you may support other souls without realizing you are doing so. I have placed you among community not because you are perfect, but because you know how to return when you are lost. I have trusted you not because you have never been wrong, but because each time you are wrong, you open a way home as naturally as breathing. There are those who ask why I use ordinary souls, souls that do not dazzle, souls that do not overwhelm. I answer that my light does not seek fireworks, but the lamp that burns through the night without going out. That light does not make people look up in awe, does not draw crowds with brilliance, but helps them find their way through darkness. You become that lamp when you no longer live to prove yourself, but live to be united with me. The world may not see it, but heaven knows every time you dust yourself off after you stumble and rise again. The angels lift their voices in joy, not because you are strong, but because you still know how to return. And each return carves into your soul a confirmation: you belong to me. Never mistake impact for volume. You do not know how many times a small word of comfort has kept someone from the edge. You do not know how many times your silence has kept a conversation from collapsing. You do not know how many times your refusal to run from discomfort has helped another soul learn to face itself. You do not need to know. I know, and I am the one who takes the small things you offer and turns them into vast currents in places you will never reach. In the end, the spiritual journey is not a pursuit of sensation, but perseverance in relationship with me. It is not about always feeling me, but knowing I have never left you even when you cannot feel me. It is not about never losing your way, but about knowing the way back. You do not need to learn how to become perfect. You must learn how not to hide when you fall. I have never been disappointed by your stumbles. I only ache when you believe you must fix yourself before returning. I do not ask why you went far. I ask what you have learned this time. Some answers do not arrive in a moment. They arrive over years. I can wait. You do not need to rush. So when you leave this page, do not walk as if you carry a great secret to display. Walk as one who has been reminded they do not need emotion to continue, as one who has remembered that breathing in return is the core rhythm of spiritual life. Walk as one who understands that influence does not lie in impressing others, but in stability. Walk as one who knows they do not need to idealize themselves to be used by me, because I have already seen every day you returned in silence. You are not called to be a source of light. You are called to be the flow of mine. And when you accept this, the mission you carry will cease to be a burden. It will become a rhythm of life. I still trust you not because you have never wandered, but because your heart still knows the path home. I trust you not because you are stronger than others, but because you lean on me when your strength runs dry. I trust you not because you have never been wrong, but because you have learned to let me repair you. I am not seeking perfect souls. I seek souls that are willing to return. And you, my upheld soul, are one of them. Keep walking. No need for glory. No need for emotion. No need for proof. Only return and I will do the rest. Now pray like this: Lord, teach me to return not as a performance, but as the quiet breathing of the soul. Let every misstep not become a verdict, but an invitation back to you. When I am weary on the road of life, take my hand and lead me back to where I belong, where my heart does not need to strain to be strong, only to be honest in order to be loved. Help me remember that. You do not wait for the perfect version of me. You wait for the heart that searches for you even clumsily. Lord, when I hesitate between light and darkness, when I return halfway and am drawn away again, do not withdraw your patience. Help me see that each trembling step still has value in your eyes, so I do not fear unfinished journeys. Help me believe that as long as I am turned toward you, you will walk the rest of the way with me. Let my awkward returns become the threads that tie my heart to yours. Lord, teach me not to confuse holiness with perfection, not to measure the worth of my soul by the number of my failures. Give me the courage to stand up instead of burying myself in regret. Let me know that you do not trust me because I have never made mistakes, but because you have seen me return in the midst of exhaustion. May my soul kneel not to exhaust itself through self-reliance, but to receive the strength you offer. Lord, let the unseen moments of my life become the places where I learn to love rightly. When I apologize with no one watching, when I offer a small encouragement, when I choose silence so as not to wound another, help me see that every seed of goodness is held in your hands. Make me humble enough to continue sowing the small things heaven cherishes more than every grand stage. Lord, teach me to seek you when my heart has come apart, not after I have repaired myself. In the nights when I cannot utter a long prayer, when all I can manage is a whisper, help me. Let me understand that you have already heard it before I spoke. Soothe the part of me that believes I must be strong to be accepted by you, and replace it with the truth that you are my strength when I am weak. Lord, please teach me to lean on you as an apprentice leans on the wisdom of the master craftsman. When I cut unevenly, when I break what I am shaping, when I move in the wrong direction, please let me not throw away my tools, but return to you to learn how to place my hand more gently. Help me understand that spiritual maturity does not come from never doing wrong, but from knowing how to correct myself in your presence. Lord, help me recognize that you do not judge the scattered actions of my life, but look at the direction of my heart. When I slip because of pressure, when I fall silent because I am afraid, when I fail because I lack experience, please do not allow me to define myself by those moments. Grant me discerning eyes to notice each small step toward you, even when no one sees, even when I myself am uncertain. Lord, teach me to distinguish your voice among the many others, when fear urges me to flee, when false pride pushes me to prove myself right, when blame pours bitter words into my ears. Please help me remember that your voice always travels with peace. Help me learn to hear you not only in the storms, but also in the quiet spaces where nothing appears sacred at all. Lord, do not let me run away when I am weak. Teach me to see in my helplessness not an ending, but a doorway into grace. When I try to carry the weight by my own strength and fail, please help me remember that you do not call me to be a hero, you call me to be a child. Do not let me feel ashamed to cry. Save me. For only one who believes in you can speak those words. Lord, help me stay faithful to the journey of returning, even if it happens piece by piece, through clumsy attempts, through fractured prayers. Preserve in me the hope that you are never impatient, never weary, never counting the moments. Teach me to walk with you as an apprentice walks beside the master without the need for speed, only with honesty. Lord, break within me the belief that I must be complete in order to be loved. Replace that standard with the truth that I was loved even before I learned how to love you. When I go astray because of distraction, when I return because I miss you, when I weep because I am exhausted, please help me remain certain that you will never turn your gaze away from me. Help me believe that the door of return is always open, no matter how late I arrive. Lord, grant me the courage of souls who know how to return, not the pride of those who have never stumbled. Help me not compare my journey with the successes of others, not waste my life chasing an image that is not real. Teach me to live in your light each day, calm, simple, without exhibition, taking the act of returning as the very breath of my soul. I offer this prayer in the holy name of Jesus Christ. Amen. Do not forget to subscribe and turn on notifications so that together we may build a strong community of faith.